Hey, so this is a video response to Jack. Jack came out with his personal opinion on how the debate went, and it's a bit. The debate was long. Debate, quote unquote. It was really more of a learning experience for Jack. Jack doesn't really know what objective personality is all about. He was asking me questions, who I'm not the authority on objective personality, and he sort of mixed my personal opinions with objective personality theory. Um, I saw that from his conclusion video that he came out on the debate. So I just want to straighten a few of those things out. So first and foremost, TE being a tribe function or not, that is something that objective personality does claim. Dave and Shan are both using TE, and Jack, I'm sorry, you're just not. You're not, at least in socionics, you're not using it in a valued spot. So they would be a much better authority on TE. But from what I've seen, TE is not necessarily a tribe focused function, but it's an objective focused function. And part of that means that other TE users will see the same thing because of the fact that it's objective, and because of the fact that they're all seeing the same kind of extroverted logic. One of the things I've seen TE users do, and this is people that I've met in real life, that they might not even be aware of it, is that they are getting everybody else on board with a plan before going to execute it. Where I, as a TI user, I've seen that I don't do that. I just go and do what I think is best without checking with anyone or without making sure everyone else agrees or something like that, because of course everyone will agree. It's the best thing to do, right? Well, for them, it's not best unless everyone else is on board. What's best is what we can actually succeed together doing. So there is a tribe element to it from what I've seen. It might not be as strong as objective personality says, but again, I'm not using TE. They're using TE. I'm going to learn TE from TE users, not from Jack, and not from some theory that someone cooked up in their basement based on looking at their spouse. I'm sorry. And that said, Socionics, I'm sure, has a lot of good things to bring to the table. And I'm not trashing Socionics in any way, just that they need to be accountable to something as well. And he's saying that Dave and Chen aren't publishing peer-reviewed papers. Well, first and foremost, peer review is not the ultimate authority on truth. And I said during our debate that the reason why the internet, Socionics, objective personality, all this stuff is coming out is because the academic world has dropped the ball. They are not publishing peer-reviewed papers on typology. They are all in on the big five, which is fine, but it's a self-testing method. So, I mean, I'm sure eventually they might come out with peer review, but the fact that they're not doesn't mean they're wrong. And the fact that we're having an open discourse like this is, in my opinion, more dynamic and more natural than peer review. Peer review works for things like physics, where two people can do the same kind of test and get the same results. It works in chemistry, it works in biology, it works in maybe psychological studies as well, where they can come out with statistical analysis. For this at the moment, until they're checking it against DNA, or they're checking it against something like brain scans, MRI machines, or EEG machines, there's no way to actually produce a peer-reviewed paper. For now, we just have to trust that Dave and Shan were not able to type people. And then by adding more and more coins, they were able to agree on type better and better. And just the fact that they're not trying to define the functions. We don't have to go and learn the definitions from objective personality. What you learn from objective personality is not how to define the functions, it's how to type people. And it's how to get the same type. And so then once you have an assortment of 50 people using TE, you can go and ask them, what is TE for you? What is TE for you? And get the data, get the analysis. And I guess what you have to do is let reality tell you what it is. You can't tell reality what it is. And this is just basic understanding of what reality is, that you can't say, okay, this is what there is, and now I'm going to go out and look for it and find my confirmation bias there. No, what you got to do is you got to be open, not bring your biases to the table when you're going to look and see what TE actually is. A lot of, in his response video, what he was saying was flavored using his own functions. So facts, just putting it out there, facts is not thinking. Facts just are, right? It's a fact that I was born in 1981, for example, right? So that's a fact, right? It's not thinking. It's an observation, right? Thinking might use facts, but for him and for SI users, facts hold a lot more weight, because for them, that's their takeaway. They're going to use their extroverted intuition and to mull over all of the different possibilities and then come out with a fact, which is the one possibility that actually is, right? And, or if I botch that definition, I'm sorry, but I just know facts hold a different amount of weight to people using introverted sensation, which I'm not using. I'm using introverted thinking. And, for me, facts are what I take in. Facts are, I would like an abundance of facts, and I don't trust facts. Facts are not trustworthy until I've seen the pattern behind them. And then I can say, okay, these facts fit the pattern. These facts don't. Maybe the pattern's wrong. Maybe the facts are wrong, right? And that's the idea of being a double observer, that I can actually test my intuition versus my facts and throw out and assign weight to which ones are more accurate and less accurate, right? And that's just what TI does. It's comparing things for contradictions and for trying to find what's actually true between the two. So I don't like his interpretation at all, bringing facts into thinking. That's just not what thinking might use facts, but it's not what it does. And same thing with logic. Thinking might use logic, but F dominant people can use logic. It doesn't mean they can't. Just thinking uses logic a lot more, so they might end up being better at it. The other thing he went off on is the similarities and things. He was against similarities. He was against, Jackie was against putting TE, finding the similarities between TE and FE, right? Which, they're both extroverted judging functions. So there's got to be some similarities there. The reason why he's against similarities is because he's using NE. He's not valuing similarities and things. He's not valuing the narrowing down of the intuition. He likes the variance. He likes the differences. And that's what he's going to be putting emphasis on. And it's just really funny that he knows about cognitive functions, but yet he's still biased and letting the cognitive functions influence his picture of reality. So I was just, I got cut out there on my video recording software, but I was in the middle of saying how Jack was letting his cognitive functions influence his picture of reality. So another point I have is where he came out against introverted sensing as meaning. Now, that is something that I just recently learned. It's not something that objective personality holds. So it's on me. And I learned it from a few people that were using SI, and that's what they identified SI to be. I was trying to learn about SI from people, which is the way I go about it. Especially if I know they were typed SI and I agree with their typing on SI and I see the SI in them, then I can go and learn. And one of the things, SI I think is a very misunderstood function across the typing community, especially since we don't have many SI users here. I've noticed that SI comes off as very shallow and simple and basic, and people really disrespect it when SI users are talking. But from my close encounters with SI users, they're very deep people, very special and deep people that have a lot of depth on the sensory information. And what I've just heard from them is that this is just from them. And I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what they say. They say that there is a lot of meaning behind what they see in the physical world. And they're always stacking and adding more and more meaning. Now, this is not what objective personality says. Objective personality just says, well, we're going to catch these people by seeing them organizing the sensory, right? Just to, and I'm really dumbing it down. They understand the cognitive functions much more than they let on, or that they're trying to teach people, but they're really just trying to teach people how to type, not what the functions are. And this is what Jack doesn't get. They're not trying to define the functions. They're trying to teach you how to type people, which is two completely different things. You just need to understand how to catch people. Now, will they get people wrong this way? Probably, because everyone can act in any way. One of the things I've seen is they're getting a lot of feminine FE people wrong just wrong from what I've seen, right? Just because the feminine FE is really good at chameleoning and pretending to speak in the language of the person they're speaking to. It's not even pretending; they just genuinely do this. They're really good at bridging that gap and talking to someone in a way that the other person can understand, which I think is really great. But at the same time, it makes it harder to type them, right? Anyways, so that's just about the SI point. Works of art and literature are not real people, Jack. I just got to put that in there. You just can't type, you can't learn about functions from works of art, from characters in works of art, right? Maybe, okay, maybe the author has a certain type and maybe he describes a character with that same type. So maybe you can see some insight into his psyche, right? From that. But don't go and learn functions. Like, maybe you might be right. You could learn from fictional characters what type is, but Jack, come on, learn from reality, not from fiction, please. Like, just take what you learn from fiction with a grain of salt. Honestly, this is like, I don't even know why you would promote this. This is not like, can you just imagine someone going to learn physics from Jules Verne, a novel, time travel, and like, am I going to go learn about physics from Star Trek? Honestly, most of it's science fiction for a reason. Like, it's fiction for a reason. So I mean, I think you can learn from it, but it's got to be really well written and really solid. And even then, they're not real people, Jack. They're just not. Like, please don't ever do this again. Don't ever promote learning about type from works of fiction, okay? You just can't derive functions conclusively from characters in art. Okay, the last thing, Jack says a lot, it doesn't make sense, it makes sense. Okay, first of all, the fact that something makes sense or doesn't make sense doesn't make it real. Just look at quantum physics, for example. Just the fact that quantum physics doesn't make sense to anyone, yet they still use it because it's accurate and it works, should say something. So don't ever bring in an argument, this makes sense, that's why it's true, and this doesn't make sense. That's just really bad TI, Jack. Come on. That's just bad logic in general, okay? So those are my points. The other thing is, Jack hasn't mentioned that him and I are starting to explore this a little bit deeper. We're starting to look at people who he's typing the same in Socionics from people who were typed the same in OP. And we're going to try to derive our own understanding of the functions from those people and not take the definitions from Socionics. And OP doesn't have definitions, but we're not going to take the definitions from OP. We're going to start fresh, figure out new definitions for the functions all over again, based on people that he's typed and OP has typed the same. And in this way, we're not projecting onto reality something that we've already decided. We are gathering from reality what actually is there, right? And I realize this is all subjective stuff. There's no way to be objective about it, but hopefully through this effort, we can sort of get to some kind of agreement in the middle. Anyways, have a good one. Thanks.